The draft is coming up. We talked with Carson Wentz's coach today from North Dakota State. He had a couple of very interesting things to say. He basically, he said, look, this guy's from North Dakota. He wanted to go to North Dakota. That's how he grew up. That's where he wanted to be. He said, I feel that he's ready. But he indicated a lot that it would benefit him to sit. Does that worry you at all? I mean, he feels like, hey, it would be probably beneficial for all, but I think it would be pretty beneficial for him to start his career maybe not getting thrown into the fire. Is that a concern?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's every coach's mentality. I really do. So I'm not sure that indicates a concern, just the fact that it's really, really difficult for anybody, whether you're Carson Wentz, Andrew Luck, Jameis Winston, whatever prospect you want to name. It's really hard to hit the ground running in the NFL. Look at Peyton Manning. And look at Troy Aikman, two Hall of Fame quarterbacks that were just awful their rookie seasons and turned out to live forever in Canton. So it's not necessarily a criticism, but while I say that, this is a different era, and you don't have time, whether it's the shortest attention span of our culture now, our society. There are no more 3-4 year plans where you sit and learn. The last, which was also very successful, it's probably Aaron Rodgers behind Brett Favre in Green Bay, but I don't know if you can replicate that type of situation. So unfortunately, Carson Wentz is going to have to be like a lot of players, and he's going to have to play before he's probably ready to play.
I thought Phil Sheridan brought up a very interesting point that I really hadn't heard a lot about when we talk about quarterbacks. How much stock do you put into this? He said, look, I'm not taking anything away from Wentz, but North Dakota State won national championships before him. Those quarterbacks never got a sniff. Jared Goff's team had a losing record, and he kind of topped it off with Temple beat Memphis. Not that Temple stinks, but Paxton Lynch, who's the third guy, these guys their resumes aren't exactly glowing off of the marquee here, these three guys.
Well, I will say, in deference to Temple almost beat Notre Dame. Temple was good last year. If it wasn't for Will Fuller, it's going to be a first-round pick. So I'm not going to hold that against Paxton Lynch. But as far as, you're right, North Dakota State is dominant at their level of football. They've won, I think, 4, maybe 5 consecutive national championships. So they're a juggernaut, and you're right, the guys before him didn't get a sniff. They're also not 6'4", 235 with that kind of athleticism who can throw the ball 70 yards in the air. So NFL scouts are smart enough to project players outside of their environment. You bring up Goff, a perfect example. This is the ultimate team game. If you're a really, really good quarterback and you have Drek around you, you're not going to win a lot of football games. That doesn't mean you're not a good quarterback necessarily. Look no further than Archie Manning to explain that, because he was a great quarterback for years in New Orleans, and the Saints were just terrible around him. So scouts, especially in today's world, are really, really smart, and they can kind of pick the NFL level prospects absent of what's around them because they realize if they have the skill set or not.
John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com. Jordan Hicks been fully cleared from that torn pectoral muscle. And I thought some interesting stuff, narrative between him and D'Amico Ryans, where Ryans basically told him, go in there and be the leader. These guys already look up to you. It makes you feel like they might have got something special the way he played last year. And to hear that from Ryans to a guy who was a rookie last year, this could be one of those players that you get in the third round and then hear about, hey, he fell to the third round, and you're hearing great stories about down the road.
Yeah, that was the hope, because I talked to D'Amico personally, and I asked him, how much last year did you have to help Jordan get up to speed? And he said, not much at all. That's how just smart he is and how big his football IQ was. He just kind of understands how to play the game. It comes natural to him. He's very, very instinctive. I think my one concern with Jordan Hicks, though, is the injuries, and not just last year, dating all the way back to college, and they're always different injuries. It's not like a Sam Bradford who, had the 2 consecutive ACLs. It's a pec, it's a knee, it's a leg, it's something else. And he's going back. He's never been able to stay on the field for an entire season. And now when you project to the NFL level where all of a sudden it goes from 11 or 12 games up to 16 and hopefully more than that if you make the playoffs, I have to see him last an entire season before I can say this is our middle linebacker and this is going to be our middle linebacker for the next 4 or 5 years.
John, Jason La Canfora over at CBS this morning basically said that the Eagles are, quote, in love with Ezekiel Elliott. If he's on the board, if Goff and Wentz aren't there, then Elliott is the pick. That is the belief around the league. Is that your belief?
No, I've been pretty consistent with that. I don't think Howie Roseman values the position. I know what he said a couple weeks ago, but people have to remember this is subterfuge season, and people don't always tell the truth because they're trying to mask their intentions. And depending on what report you'll see, well, whether it's the Eagles are desperately trying to trade up to get Carson Wentz or they are in love with Ezekiel Elliott, a lot of it is just trying to mask the obvious intent, and we don't know what that is. And as the stories keep coming out, the reports keep coming out, and don't get me wrong, I mean, people are saying these things and feeding these things to certain reporters, but they have an ulterior motive in a lot of cases. And you'll see it all around the NFL, not just in Philadelphia. All over you'll see these kind of stories about particular teams falling in love or they want this guy, and it's really just trying to mask what they really want to do.
John is with us here as we look at the NFL offseason, and we continue on with the draft 15 days away, and you just mentioned Elliott as a guy. If the Eagles, because part of this La Canfora report basically says the belief around the league is that Howie Roseman is, quote, dead set on making a huge splash in the draft. If they were to move up and not take a quarterback, is there a guy that they would move up for to target?
Well, I think depending, and this week is big for not only Miles Jack but also Jalen Smith. Smith is not going to be in the Eagles realm, but because the medical rechecks happen in Indianapolis, actually they start tomorrow on the 14th and 15th. You have to look at those two players. Miles Jack is, I've been told since pretty much day one, he's number one on the Eagles board. So I think they would be very, very happy if somehow he landed with them. A lot of it, though, does depend on the medical recheck because he's got some issues. And as I mentioned with Jalen Smith, it's even more important for him because he's a top 5 level talent. He's obviously not going to be picked there now, but if his recheck shows that there's no nerve damage in his leg, he could be a first-round pick again, and someone will take a chance on him. So this is a very important week for certain prospects.
John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com, at JF McMullen on Twitter. He will be with me for the Eagles draft party. That will be a fun day. We will see what happens that night, and, of course, we will be at Tailgaters in Galloway, and someone will win a chance to draft which Eagles road trip they want to go to. And, John, the NFL schedule is finished. It will be out here shortly. I know that's a day that you have circled on your calendar.
Is there anything more overblown in the world than the NFL schedule? And look, we already know who they're playing, so basically what they're telling us is dates of games, and yet it's
got to plan our trips. We got to plan our trips.
Yeah, it speaks to the popularity of the league. And one of my favorite but nonsensical enterprises, I call it the Mike Francesa "that's a win, that's a loss" game, which everyone plays after the schedule comes out. And it's really so meaningless because if you think about it, it's not who you play, it's when you play them. Because pick a team. If you're playing, say, the Dallas Cowboys last year, well, if you knew Tony Romo wasn't going to be there, it certainly looked a lot easier after he was hurt than before he was hurt. So anything that looks easy or looks difficult in April when they do put the schedule out isn't necessarily going to end up that way when it's actually game day.
John has, of course, a lot more on the NFL at 97.3ESPN.com. And we will also be diving in, I'm sure, John, as the NBA playoffs get here. Plenty of thoughts on that as well. And the NHL playoffs starting tomorrow night. You can hear Flyers and Capitals on 97.3. All right, my man. We will talk tomorrow, and let me know when that schedule comes out. Will you? I need it.
The announcement, the pre-announcement of the announcement schedule came out today.
All right, man. I'll talk to you.
All right, thanks.